Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Because I just spent an hour trying to fix this microphone.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, good. We are live. We jump right into it with our guests. So
Okay.
please, Jake, who is Jake Suddreth? Where are you? What are you working on? What are you doing? Just so our audience can understand how the things that you're doing, I think, are really amazing, and I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a career college student, it seems like. I got two master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and in the process ended up playing about a year and a half in the minor leagues for the White Sox. Once the career ended with the White Sox, then I became became a Grand Junction Rocky in the last season there, won the Pioneer League. And, once I was done playing, the love was always still in the game, and that's what everything's been focused around since. So I started my own baseball training facility, PDP Athletics. It's in Chandler, Arizona, and I've had that going now for we're coming up on the 3 year mark here in a couple of days, and that's kind of catapulted as we've gone to what I'm building now with Kinebase Sports, which is the only system in the world that combines lab grade kinematics, predicted ground reaction forces to 98, 99% as accurate as a real force plate, and can do that without the force plates. It also combines, the ball and bat, basically a launch monitor, and it does all of those things in real time, gives you data and gives you feedback within 20 to 30 seconds instead of waiting a week for that data to come in.
What has been the hardest part for you transitioning from being a college student, being a professional athlete, to saying, well, I'm going to run this facility? How did that transition go for you? And you're running two businesses at the same time. How are you able to compartmentalize all of the duties you have for one, all of the duties you have for other? What's that been like for you?
And going into the facility, I think one of the big things is, run our facility kind of very much like a locker room to some degree. It's very much open, like, hey, we're trying to tell athletes what it looks like at the next level. And, to be able to do that, it's, everything from, hey, this is, the kind of person you're going to need to be. This is, the different experiences that you're going to have. So doing that, it helps you stay connected to the game. It helps you stay, it doesn't really feel like you've left it all the time, specifically related to that. Then it becomes the other duties associated with that are now what the focus has to become. So, you're working on all the administrative side of everything, and if anything ever gets slow or harder to work through, it's that side of things. So that's where just having a good support system helps there to make sure that you can handle everything on the back end. And then from the motion capture perspective, that's been the significantly more challenging side to get things going. We've been at it for a little over a year now, and we're just now getting to the point where we're ready to go to market with that.
Who is your team? Who is your support system? And how do you know that those are the right people to have in your corner?
And as far as kind of everything I'm doing, most of it has been family and friends from the very beginning. So when I started my facility, the team that did all the painting, that laid the gym floor, it was myself, my dad, my mom, and my wife. Um, and that was pretty much everything. My dad and I run the facility together. So him and I handle, or mainly him handles all of the back end of everything, and I handle everything that happens, the day to day to kind of keep the wheels going, and he keeps the lights on. And then from the motion capture company perspective, he's in that with me as well to be able to help run, make it a business. All help sell it, keep the direction of where we want to go, determine some of the things that we want to track, or some of the things that we want to be able to show people to make sure that, you know, athletes and coaches can use it and it's not just something built by engineers. And he'll help run all of that, support system when I have to leave those places, or when I do have late nights. It's been my wife. I had to talk to our developers in Germany, and in order to do that, I had to go to the German workday, which starts at 11 p.m. Arizona time. So I'll work my regular day at the facility. There's been some days where I just don't go home. I stay till the Germans get there, and I'll work until 3 or 4 in the morning to be able to work the bulk of their workday and make sure that that feedback loop tightens up. So mainly, it's been family that's been able to help through that. There's been, and we've got a pretty good support system as far as who's helping run things. I've got another coach in my facility that has been really really good, Andrew Romanoli. Starting out in his coaching career, that he eventually wants to become an agent because of his ability to connect players.
It's amazing. The thing that we talk about on Open Athletes, the thing that I mentioned to you, was I want to use this as a place to showcase the things that you are doing, which is amazing. The steps that you're taking, like inside of sport and outside of sport, is exactly the type of thing that I hope the community that we're building is able to show people, in sports or not, the value that athletes can have, like in the marketplace of businesses, of ideas, of community. What has been the hardest part of the transition out of being a professional athlete to then this entrepreneur who has this facility, who's kind of this guy in baseball still, to not being in baseball, to like changing your work ethic from I am an athlete to now I am this guy building these companies? How has that transition of focus and energy been for you?
It's significantly harder to see what the goal is sometimes and see exactly where you're trying to go with things. I say that in terms of, when I was training to pitch, hey, these are the couple things that I know I need to do from a mechanical perspective or a strength perspective to gain an extra mile per hour. You're not always right in that, but you at least have a very clear roadmap as far as the capabilities and the qualities that you need to work on, and it's a little bit easier to go about that. When you're starting businesses, it's you kind of don't have too much of that roadmap all the time. You don't always have, hey, I just need to get more mobile to do this. You can provide a product that some people think is great, but not everyone's going to. You're so much more dependent on the outside perception to be able to run a training facility, for example, than you are from an athlete's perspective. Building your career, yes, obviously, it matters what the team thinks of you, but ultimately, if you become a good enough athlete or you perform well enough, you'll be able to stick around and usually keep moving up. That's not the case when you're building a startup. When you're building a startup, it's you've got to handle more, and you don't exactly know the problems until they come.
We talk a lot about having fun on this show. Playing sports is fun. Playing professional sports is really, really hard. And if you're really, really good or know how to separate it, it can be fun. When you were playing and you were getting, like, I played the same amount of time as you, about a year and a half, got injured for me, got released. I have more fun doing the thing that I'm doing now than I did playing professional baseball. Where do you see the similarities and differences between the two for you? Are you able to, have the fun that you were having playing baseball and the things that you're able to build in the community that you're building too?
I mean, I would say absolutely. Looking into, one of the big things that always drove me was competition. and running a training facility. When we have pros come back for the off season, I throw to be able to throw live to them.
Nice.
Like I train for that. And hey, if a team wants me to go play at a men's league, I want to be able to throw, as hard as possible to be able to go do that. Being able to even have little competitions with athletes, whether it's a command game or working through different pitches or even spike ball to help an athlete warm up. I mean, different things like that. That you know keep the competition alive. I think those are, the areas that I still have a lot of fun because that was always what drove me then. And, finding ways to be able to do that. There's so many similarities in what I'm doing that allow me to do that now. And then, there's a lot more, I guess the right way to say it is probably, sense of pride in seeing something that you built start to come to fruition. Being able to see, hey, like I built this and that's, probably more cool than it was, most of the time going through the playing career. I mean, there's things that we're doing with Kinebase that I mean, are probably cooler feelings, or hey, we're about to lock down, our first sale. That is probably a cooler feeling than, almost any moment outside of, maybe signing the contract as an undrafted free agent.
Right. I agree with you there. Many we have many young people watching the show, kids in high school, college, early professional in their career. Um, we talk a lot about being in the window. My window was 2 years. Your window was 2 years of being in the window to being a professional athlete. And what can you do? What can you leverage outside of your career because of the fact that you're in the window? Or you have the opportunity to get in more rooms. Your story is, you said undrafted free agent. Tell us your story of how you went from four colleges in 4 or 5 years to then undrafted free agent. What was that transition like for you, that journey like for you? Because I see a lot of the tenacity of going college to college to college, just doing what you can to play, to then signing, and now the focus and like dedication you have to the things that you're doing are a direct, I see a direct line between your tenacity on the mound and your baseball career to the things that you're doing now. What was that journey like to get to the room and ultimately going, okay, I can now take what I learned from that and transition it into these things that I'm building?
Oh man, yeah, I think it's been, kind of a crazy road. You hear the stories that, sound like they could be a good movie. And, had I made a couple lovers further, there's probably a movie coming out soon. Uh, in high school, my sophomore year, I was told I was the worst player in the program by our head coach. Transferred after my junior year, was told, hey, don't expect to throw a whole lot. You're probably the sixth best pitcher on the team. And at the time, I was 84 to 87 going into my senior year. And I ended up throwing the second or third most innings in the state, had a 1.22 ERA, was 8-2. We won the state championship, but I threw 84 to 87. Got up to 89, 91, like touched it a couple times towards the end of my senior year. But I went to Hawaii Pacific Division II school. Went there, was on a pretty big scholarship that I was going to play right away. Nope, redshirted. They redshirted every freshman we had in the program that year. There were 13 of us. So come back, go to Mesa Community College. Almost got cut in the fall. Uh, Quite literally was told in like October, if you don't change the way you throw, you're cut. There was no direction as far as, what to do. So, I started searching out outside resources, starting to study on my own. There were things that, hey, just kind of figured it out along the way and ended up that season as an All-American and the single season and career saves record holder in one season. And went to BYU afterwards, was the closer at BYU my I guess my first year there, so my redshirt sophomore year, had like a 3.8 ERA. I mean, it was solid. I looked at the season and thought I sucked, but if you look up the numbers, you're like, hey, those aren't bad, other than the fact that I hit 12 guys in 26 innings. Yeah, rough stretch. Then come back the next year, got cut. I was 2 minutes late to a 5 a.m. workout. You know, went through my workout, did my punishment, got to practice, got cut at practice. So from there, I took 19 credits that next semester. I had to get special approval to be able to do so. And I trained at a facility called Norton Performance up in Utah. And, what they were great at was the strength and conditioning aspect, being able to train like an athlete, not just a football player, like, the BYU weights program was at the time. And, everything for throwing I was doing in a parking garage throwing plyos. Uh, Kids there would, draw and chalk different stick figures, and that was my catch play partner. I would post videos of myself throwing there on, Twitter all the time, and was able to get some pretty great resources. And as far as people that would offer advice, you know, obviously sometimes it's hard to determine what advice is good advice, and you just kind of do your best to say, hey, like, I think this is something that might work for me. So, like PFA, Dave Coggin, I used a lot of information from them. Joe Kelly, like how his transition happened and how he shortened his arm path. I did a very similar transformation, except I did it entirely on my own with like a couple messages from Dave Coggin, and a couple other people. And I told people on Twitter that I was 90-92. I had never touched a two. I basically just said, hey, by the time someone comes out to see me, I'll do it. Florida State came out to watch me throw a bullpen. Actually, they flew out to Arizona, and I went back home to Arizona. I was still up in Utah at the time, and I sat 91-93. And he was like, hey, whatever we can get, open it up from the draft. We can, probably provide some scholarship money. Otherwise, we think he could be a pretty good back end of the bullpen arm. And I committed on the spot. I was like, yep, I'm in. Don't care. And they changed head coaches. They went from Mike Martin Sr. to Mike Martin Jr. And with that, they also changed pitching coaches. So I committed in like July, and I show up, and I mean, I don't know a single person there. For all I know, they don't even know I'm supposed to be there. And I walk in, I've got a locker. So I was like, all right, I guess somebody knows I'm supposed to be here. But yeah, it was, a weird situation. And then obviously the fact that it was the COVID year, I didn't throw a single inning. So go to Florida State, had, draft meetings with the Tigers and the Rays based on, metrics and stuff they saw me do in the fall, didn't throw an inning. Had great video to be able to show people from, my inner squads, and posted that on Twitter. But obviously, I thought I was done. It was the COVID year. I was like, hey, I was a fifth year senior already. I Florida State makes you take 12 credits in grad school, unlike most schools where it's 9. So I finished my master's degree in 11 months. And went the recruiting process again. I went to West Texas A&M, and I did that because they were a Division II school that gave me a pretty substantial scholarship. I mean, they gave me a full ride to go there, and we had an NC State pitcher, Arizona State pitcher, Clemson pitcher, Texas Tech pitcher. Our center fielder was Kyler Murray's backup at Oklahoma. I mean, it was bounce back university. Well, I go in, they say, hey, we want you to, compete to be the Friday starter or even the Saturday starter with the NC State arm. That's what I trained to do. I threw in summer ball all the way through the fall, get to the season. And about 2 weeks before opening day, they go, hey, you were an All-American closer 4 years ago. We're going to have you close again. I'm like, okay. I've done it. But what I wasn't able to do to have success was, still get into the routine that I had success with when I was a closer. Because as a closer, I treated every game like I was the starter of the 8th inning. I would basically do a starter's routine starting in the 5th inning to be ready for the 8th. Like if the game was within six, I was like, hey, I'm going to be ready for the eighth. Um, and I go to a program where the first couple games when things are good, they allow you to sit in the bullpen, do whatever you need. Second, things start going not as well for not even just you but the team, and now everyone's got to sit in the dugout. Relievers weren't allowed to sit in the bullpen, and now it's a situation of, hey, go down there, get hot. And I've got a batter or two batters to get hot from standing there in the dugout, and I was bad. I mean, I was going to strike a lot of guys out, but I was going to walk half as many guys as I struck out. And, I went in thinking, hey, they think I could be the highest draft pick in school history. I could be a top 10 round pick here. And I get to, the end of the season, I threw 9 innings in the regular season. I probably had 15 strikeouts, but I've also already had like 8 walks. Go in, play in the Northwoods. They allow seniors to play there after the year. And I go in and I got there beginning of August, like 10 days before the playoffs. So had a start, had, a game I relieved, a game that I closed, and the playoff game that I was there, I was first relief, which happened in the second inning. I came in. Yeah, they told me, hey, once the starter goes, to be able to save pitch counts and see if you can bounce back for the next game of the playoffs, we're gonna have you in first relief. Well, that didn't work out great because he was out in an inning and a third with the bases loaded. Went 6 2/3, struck out 11, and I threw 95 pitches. My 92nd pitch was the last fastball I threw, was still 92, and I was topping out at like 94 anyways. So, I was able to hold velocity for that long. Got back, started working customer support at TrackMan, and downloaded my data from the last game I played and, posted it on Twitter. Pitching Ninja, the White Sox reached out to Pitching Ninja looking for pitchers that he had seen, and he essentially gave them my Twitter handle. And I showed up at 8 a.m. to my job at TrackMan. I was there probably 5-10 minutes early. Sit down, look down at my phone, and Jake, this is the pitching coordinator for Chicago White Sox. Do you want to sign? Are you ready to throw? So I left that day and, went over to the facility, did all my intakes and everything, and, signed my contract that day to be able to start playing for the White Sox, which, was my childhood favorite team. So, really crazy experience there. I go back to TrackMan in the off season. Inside in September, I was there for like 2 weeks, so I didn't even finish training. Basically go through this off season working at TrackMan, training at Driveline, in the mornings, going to work the night shifts at TrackMan. Was able to throw live against quite a few big leaguers there, thinking, hey, I'm getting all these big leaguers out. I faced extremely high profile guys. One of them's won a few MVPs. But probably shouldn't say that he was training there because orgs at that time didn't want it to, back in like 2021. Well, go into that and I'm like, hey, I'm riding high. I've gotten an MVP out. I've gotten a handful of big leaguers out. There was only one big leaguer that got a hit off me the entire offseason. It was Mark Kana. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna go in, maybe go to high A, or maybe, who knows, I'm 25, maybe start the year in double A, like who knows. Get assigned to double A camp, and I blew up my hamstring like day 2. We were doing the Max Nordics on the Nord board, just the eccentric. Like the second day we were there, third day we were there, I think I had thrown 1 pen. Next day, couldn't touch my knees, couldn't bend over that far. So, I didn't want to tell anybody. And I basically just floss banded my hamstring and beat it with a barbell to the point where I could kind of throw. And I just threw knowing that I can't bend forward. still sat 91, 93, 11 pitches. The two balls I threw were both 0-2. So I was like, hey, I'm all right. I can tell somebody about this. I just can't really move, but I can pitch. And they put me on the shelf for 2 to 2.5 weeks. I essentially missed just about all of spring training. I threw twice live afterwards. Um, go to extended, get stuck there. Pitching coordinator had never really seen me throw and starts trying to change some things here and there because he didn't think I threw enough strikes. My strike percentage that year was like 70%. But hey, I didn't throw enough. I could throw my sweeper at, probably an 85 or like an 80% clip for strikes. And it was just everything else that wasn't a strike. And when the Dominican catcher only knows the number one, and that's the worst pitch in my arsenal, but also the one I can't control, didn't work out too well. Went a calendar month without allowing a hit. Had one game that, I think I gave up 4 earned in an inning. And ERA went from like a 0.8 to, I don't know, 3 or a 4. And I got released the next outing. And, I went into the offense like, hey, went a month without allowing a hit. For all I know, I'm getting called up. This is like beginning August. For all I know, I'm going up to low A or high A. It was the closer, had a 0.8 ERA through the end of July. And nope. Hey, you proved you can pitch at this level. Good luck. And at that point, I realized, some of the aspects of, hey, the business side of this, seeing who's been called up, who hasn't been called up, guys that, are deserving of it, guys that aren't deserving of it, for whatever reason. And seeing that, the biggest thing that correlates to who gets the opportunities in some of those situations in pro ball is who they have the most money invested in. And I signed for a hat, essentially. It was when they started finally paying for apartments that year in 2022. I lived at home with my fiance in Chandler, and they were like, "Oh, well, you're not in our apartments, so sorry, no stipend, nothing." So I was spending as much money on gas as I made to play professional baseball.
What we teach here, Jake, your story's incredible. You went from all of these different stops, you still believed in yourself, you trusted yourself. People always say, like, Jeremy, what did you hit in 2017? I'm like, I don't know. Exactly 290. Us baseball players know our numbers. And it just goes to show the dedication you gave to this thing. You weren't supposed to be there. All of these schools said no, and you still pushed yourself to do that. And much of transitioning out of playing and building a business or doing these things is the same thing, right? You're taking those skills and you're putting it into you're taking that energy and you're putting it into like something you care just as much about. What is always important for me to pull out of these conversations, number one, thank you for being so honest and like telling your story, because somebody out there is going to listen and go, I'm on my second school, and okay, so I can do the right things and make the right connections, and well, I'm creating an audience online, and that should help, right? And the answer to that is like, yes. How many times have we seen athletes build an audience and it not lead to something? You built an audience, and that audience is helping you with the things that you're doing now, of course, sure. But it helped you sign a professional baseball contract because you're just like, I'm going to post it just for me, right? Or just like as a diary, or just like to get seen, and maybe something will happen, and it did. And so when we talk about, well, what can we do right now? It's make sure that there are people who know the thing that you do very, very well. And yours at the time was throwing a baseball. Still is, if you're still able to do that years later. And I bet you, are you better now? Would you say that like the things that you've learned and the things that you know and the analytics and your shoulder and like the work that you do has led you to be, I think I'm better now. Would you say that's true?
I mean, it's at least extremely close.
Yeah.
My last season playing was 2022. I mean, I topped out at 95 like a handful of times. Uh, I didn't really train that seriously, trying to start a business. I've got two kids at home. I've got a 2-year old and a 3-month old. Um, and the time to train and be dedicated to it like just hasn't been there. I
Yeah.
would throw, but it was only like live at bats,
Sure, sure,
no
sure.
bullpen, wouldn't even play catch for 4 weeks. Hey, these guys are throwing live, or hey, this pitcher's struggling to hit 90. And I think it's just because mentally he won't allow himself to do it. I'm gonna give him competition and try to hit 90 right now. Well, I did that, and it snowballed into the fact that I started throwing even a little bit consistently. But these things that I've learned through coaching, honestly, mainly, um, has snowballed into I was up to 94.5 like 2 weeks ago. I'm half a mile to a mile from my all-time high in game, and I just did that without really training. I'm nowhere near as strong as I was when I played. I'm nowhere near as mobile as I was, but I understand the delivery now. I
Mhm.
understand how to make those corrections because I've had to help other people make those corrections. And actually, I said it, I think, a year and a half ago, when Kenny Serwa out at Tread got signed with like 88 mile per hour knuckleball. Uh, at the time I could throw one like 84, 85. I was like, hey, I posted a video. Hey, I'm gonna throw the hardest knuckleball in the world. Well, 2 Fridays ago, I threw a knuckleball that didn't register or spin on TrackMan that was 89.9. Um, and it was a strike. That was the crazy part. It was, um, you know, I had an average knuckleball velocity of 88 miles per hour. So I mean, there's things that I'm doing now that are almost the top level that I ever was. And, to some degree, with especially with what I'm doing from a coaching perspective, I own a training facility.
Mhm.
And B, what I'm building with Kinebase and the ability to have motion capture data show up within 25 to 30 seconds right now. That's what, I'm starting to look at things and saying, hey, a lot of the throwing that I've had to do over the last few months has really just been testing and accumulating data from every arm slot for essentially our German developers and the computer vision team to be able to analyze. Well, now I have, a lab grade system that if you wanted to build it on your own would cost you $150,000 to replicate it, or the system that will have way cheaper than that. I have that level of data. I have the knowledge of what to do with the data because I've been coaching using data for the last few years. And I have the training facility. And to some degree, I'm like, hey, maybe I might need to give this another shot. I just need to make sure I've got all the ducks in a row to, make sure that someone can run the facility if I accidentally get back to pro ball. But there's at least been the startings of, working out a little consistently, throwing a little consistently, just in case, who knows, I reach back and grab a seven.
Who knows? The Cardinals or Cubs or maybe a club in town might be like, we could use an arm. Sure. I see owners of independent baseball league teams on LinkedIn all the time saying, we need pitchers. Does anybody need pitchers? So it's not unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, I went out to winter meetings last year, and I went there mainly for Kinebase, and this is when Kinebase was still a concept. We didn't have working software, and I'm out there pitching to agencies and anyone who will kind of remotely listen. Uh, and it's like, hey, when you have something to show, cool. But I met a guy there who was he's the manager or the GM for the Martinez Sturgeon in the Pecos League. And he tried to sign me on the spot at winter meetings. I was like, dude, I'm not playing. But I was able to use that connection and take a guy that I had been training who came to us. He went to Utah Valley, then he went like Fresno Pacific, then he came to Justice University. Justice University was a first year baseball program last year, like 16 and 32, like, or 14 and 28, like It was you know, wouldn't be classified as a great season, but it's the first season the school's ever played baseball.
Mhm.
And me and our head coach built the roster starting in April. So we had from April to July to build a NAIA roster. And you have some pretty solid top end talent and just a very steep drop off because you're dealing with whoever's left available in April and beyond. Well, we had that kid come in and, was able to get that kid a contract and, with Martinez because of the guy I met at winter meetings on accident. Um, and, being able to, hey, now that kid had like a 2-1 ERA and had like a 14 or 15K per nine, he's got the ability to potentially, escalate his career to move on to a higher league than the Pecos, maybe the Pioneer League next year, maybe the Frontier if we can get a couple things figured out. So, I mean, the beginning question, yeah, I feel like I'm probably, maybe better than I am now, but I'm also able to use connections to help more people because of it.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. I think that's what you're supposed to do. I think that's like the best part of being in the window like we were. And even though we never made it to the big leagues, like that's okay because we're just as passionate about helping the next generation and like doing the things that like bring us that excitement every single day. Um, and I think like your story helps reinforce the thing that I'm doing too. Because I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you, okay, build your audience. Okay, then make the connections because then you can use that for the things that you're doing. And so you can help the people, so you can help leave baseball better than you found it, which is
Mhm.
like my goal in life. Um, what would you tell, and we're going a little over, so I appreciate you. What would you tell 18-year-old Jake about where he is and the steps you took in your journey so that he knows that on the other side, I think things are going to be okay for him.
I mean, if you told an 18-year-old Jake thought he was going to be a big leaguer when he threw 85. So I
Which is
mean
the right mentality to have.
the delusion was there, but the delusion, brought with it that work ethic that, became what I am now and what I'm doing now. Um, I think the big thing that I would say is, find what works for you, find the things that work for you because hey, one training program, one method of throwing, one method of training isn't going to work for everybody. Do your research, find what's going to work for you and stick with it. And hey, when things start going bad in some way, or hey, you're not progressing the way you thought it should, if you can inherently have that belief and that trust in it, then stick with it. Don't abandon ship because you're not improving. Your velocity didn't go up, your pitch shape didn't get better for a short window. Continue to stick to the process. I see it all the time with kids that I train. We're inherently, we are so likely to compare ourselves to others. And like they say, comparison is the thief of joy. Well, I've got kids that I train that, hey, I'm 78 to 80. Like I've been 78 to 80 for 6 to 8 weeks now since I started training, but those guys all jumped up 2 to 4 miles per hour. Like, why am I not? And it's like, well, you had major things you had to redo. Hey, like you have to see this through. You have to continue pushing down the path. Like, here's the light at the end of the tunnel. This is what success looks like. Continue to pursue that. And the ones that do that are going to find at least that next level of success, whatever that might be for them. You know, it's not going to be professional baseball for all of us. It's not going to be affiliated baseball for all of us. It's not going to be big leagues for all of us. But whatever that is, like, I'm a believer that just about anybody has the potential to, train themselves enough to become that caliber of athlete. It's just how much time it takes and how much effort and like, I mean, how many things you have to overcome. You know, some people could probably roll out of bed and, hey, that's a professional athlete, right? I mean, those guys signed in the first round. Um, and actually, not entirely all of them, because, the other half of the first round is guys that, were really, really good and became obsessed.
Mhm.
Like, I can't remember which Lombard it was. Was it Jacob this year in the first round? Uh, but there's a video that he put out where he was a soccer player until like high school, and then he saw his brother starting to get recruited, and he's like, "Huh, I want to do that." And he said that their dad had to like pull them off the field, like pull them out of you know training, doing the little monotonous things of like just their glove work. Had to pull them out of the cage, out of the weight room. And when you have that level of dedication to do beyond just, hey, what you're doing from your practice, that's what it takes. If I could tell anything to 18-year-old me, it would be, A, find what success looks like to you, do your research and find something that you believe in to help you get to that, and stay the course no matter what, like what little, blips happen along the way.
Mhm.
Stay the course and allow yourself to continue to pursue that. Um, you know, I probably also would have said to pay a little bit more attention in college, and in certain classes. I have a bachelor's in entrepreneurial management, a master's in sport management, and an MBA in marketing. And the MBA in marketing, all I know is that I have an MBA in marketing. Um, I mean, the the head of the program told us day one that it's an MBA program, it's a master's program. GPA doesn't matter unless you want to become a doctor, or get a doctorate. And I heard that and went, all right. I mean, I was a 4.5 student in high school. I could, you know, close my eyes, fall asleep in class, and just roll out of bed and take the test and ace it. And I heard that and went,
Okay.
well, I'm going to try to learn what's on the exam the day before the exam, and just hold it for 24-hour window, and then I'll forget it the day afterwards. And I essentially did that through an entire MBA program. And there's probably some things there that in what I'm trying to do with Kinebase could probably help a little bit more. Being able to get that out to people, to use my platform to be able to get that out. um there's probably areas where building some of those habits early on
Mhm.
would have helped what I'm doing now. But yeah, I mean, that's the big thing that I would tell.
Yeah. I I think it's well, good on you for being able to get out of bed and take a test. Like I was never like that. I was like, okay, I got to study for weeks in advance. I got to do all the things, and then maybe I'll get a B. I appreciate you for being here and sharing your story. And there's a kid out there who's a lot like Jake, who's gonna be like, okay, let me maximize my window. Let me maximize my effort. Let me do the things I need to do to get to the next level. And for me, my career, I got drafted by the New York Mets, my childhood team too. I played 2 years, got injured, got released, was on another team, qualified for the Olympics, and I've done the other things I want to do in baseball. And for me, my career was like an absolute success. And I would say to you, I hope you see your career as a success. Whether or not you wanted to get the big leagues or you're like big leagues or bust or whatever, your career has been a success for you so far. And there's more that we get to see from you as you continue to do these things. Um, and so that's going to be exciting for us. So I would love the opportunity to like obviously stay in touch. We're in the same city. Like shout out Phoenix.
Yeah.
We're also in PAC, professional athlete community together, which is how we got connected. And it's cool to just get connected with somebody like 5 miles away. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so let's stay in touch and let's bring you back and check in with you as you continue to do the things that you're doing in baseball, which I think is exactly what this community needs.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I would add to that, in what I'm doing with Canon Base, like obviously right now I'm building a lab grade solution. It's going to start with colleges, facilities,
Mhm.
places like that. Uh, but eventually, because we track the bat and the ball and all the body inputs, where I want to go with that is even an iPhone version to where the kid that's in his garage with his dad that doesn't have access to coaches that wants information that you'd have to fly to somewhere that's got a lab to do. The goal is to be able to provide that eventually to the fingertips of a dad with his kid and be able to say, hey, these are what you've done from a biomechanical perspective, from a force production perspective, postural perspective, outcome perspective. And here's the areas that you need to improve. Because I think playing was one thing. It's very few people that can truly make like an impact as a player, right? You look at people that make an impact, it's your perennial all-stars. Like those are the ones that have the biggest impact from a playing perspective, nothing else. I think, you know, in our situations, even looking back at, more than baseball, kind of where you started. And the t-shirt that I had from it, where it was the minor leaguers deserve major raises, you know, the impacts that we can have to, further the game, to further where everything is going, you know, it's only a couple people that are going to do that as players. But anybody that wants to can find a way to make their positive impact on the game, to make their impact on the future of the sport, whether that's for people who are kids right now, people who are in college. So that's the area that I'm trying to make my mark on baseball. Obviously with cannabis, there's potential for us to go softball, whatever,
Yeah.
do other things down the road. um, but where I'm trying to make my mark is, how we advance the game. You know, can I help predict injuries because we're able to predict joint stress and muscle activation?
Mhm.
Can I help maximize performance or start telling people, hey, you need to be able to create more power through this, through your lead leg, and you need a strengthening program to do that. Here's things to do that. You know, being able to make my mark in that way. And that's what I think, some of the questions that you've asked, like, hey, and even another one is, what does success look like now after the career? And I think it's being able to further advance the game of baseball,
Mm.
further, you know, a few kids' careers, help kids that probably shouldn't have been able to play college baseball, help kids that, would have just been really good talents, or kids that are really good talents and, maybe don't have it mentally together to become professional players. Help them learn and understand the struggles, the things that it takes, and what you really have to do from all around, not just how you practice, but how you take care of your body, how you prepare on a daily basis, and help those kids get to whatever that next thing is for them.
Mhm.
I think that's the area that we can truly make an impact, is being able to further where the game goes in any way, shape, or form on any scale.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Um, I couldn't have said it better myself, and that is like the beauty of baseball is we could still. I get to coach varsity baseball this year at Chaparral. Go Birds! My alma mater. I'm just excited to like be in a dugout and be teaching again. And the
Yeah.
thing that I love to teach is baseball, and I'm very fortunate for that. And you get to do that every single day at your own facility, and that is like the open athletes thing is take the thing that you love the most and turn it into something that you get to do every day, because the best parts of it are gonna be lasting and worthwhile. So we could go for hours on
Oh
that,
yeah.
and we probably will over time. But I appreciate you, and just very grateful that we've been able to connect through all of this. Shout out Pack, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah,
Good morning.
appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Wow, 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 wow. See, this is where I need a commercial. Because I need to just take a breath before we get into federal investigations and ownerships and billions of dollars. Jake, who we just met. I just met a couple weeks ago through PAC, and the thing that he's doing is the thing that I want to be doing. I want a facility. I want an app that helps baseball players. That's fun. And I get to see that, the work that he's putting in to do that, the work that he put in to get there. It's really impressive to meet somebody who gave it everything and went from place to place to place to place to then somebody saw him on Twitter and he signed a professional baseball contract. And yeah, some would say it did work out. He played professional baseball. Some would say it didn't work out because he didn't get further along. I would say anytime you have an opportunity to play at that level, that is what you strive for. Even though you want to be a major leaguer. I've had major leaguers who were like, my career was a failure because I wanted to be an all-star. And I've met all-stars that are like, I never won an MVP. And I've met MVPs that have been like, I wasn't a Hall of Famer. Because I asked that question to everybody, was your career a success? And they'll say, well, there was this goal. And that's what makes them great, right? They have this goal. And they're going to do everything they possibly can to get to that goal. And if they don't reach that goal, they see it as a failure. Where I think Jake's career is an absolute success. And look what he's done with the fact that he loves baseball. He loves pitching. He knows his stats from 10 years ago. That's what a guy who loves the sport, loves the thing that they do, does. And so there's a lot that you can learn from somebody who's like, I'm going to give it everything I possibly could, and was in the window, created the opportunity to be in the window by doing exactly this. By doing the thing that you can do. Put your highlights on. Put your, he didn't care what people were saying or the comments that he got or whatever. He kept doing it. And somebody saw it. And somebody gave him a professional baseball contract because he was good enough to play at that level. And sometimes athletes get overlooked. But he ended up being in the same room as everybody else. Because he trusted himself to continue doing it. And that's why I asked, could you still do it? And he's still touching 94. 4 years after his professional career ended. I don't know, he's probably a little younger than me. So maybe he's 27, 28. It's not unheard of. I mean, baseball, they're looking for pitchers all the time. It's not unheard of for him to get a call one day. Who knows? The NCAA might let him back in and play. That's a successful career. I don't give a shit how much money he's making. It doesn't matter. He comes to work every day at a facility he started, doing a thing that he loves doing, saw an opportunity to create something more easily accessible of a tool as TrackMan, all of the data analytics, whatever. Saw an opportunity, is pursuing that opportunity, has the facility, coaches, does this stuff with this NAIA program. What more can you ask for in a baseball career? Doesn't matter. He's got 2 kids and a family, and he works with his dad every day. Find me a better example of the thing that Open Athletes does than that. So shout out, Jake. Thanks for coming on. We're going to keep having you on because I think the thing that you're doing is the thing that you need to be doing in your window, in your time, in the leverage that you have. And former professional baseball player doing all of this, starting this facility, has this company, goes to winter meetings, has the contacts building the network, has the connections, plus part of professional athlete community, PAC. What's he not doing? So shout out Jake, man. That's what you have to do. For guys like us. For other guys, it's yeah, they made $1 million and they play in the big leagues and they can do all these other things after because they have the capital and the resources and the cultural cachet to put your name on something and have opportunities. But some of us don't have that. And we have to like continue to chip away to get to a place where like we want to get to. I'm a former professional athlete. Like I have goals with this and our community and the things that we are doing, but I understand that like I can't live and die by the goals. I'm so excited to like come on and have this conversation every single day because like I love doing that. He's going to work every single day doing the thing that he loves to do. And like that is the value of this community and this show and this conversation. That's why the thing that we're doing, we, all of us, Jake, Tate, we're going to have Nikki on over the next couple of weeks. She's building a mental health app. Doesn't matter that there's other mental health apps. Nikki's never done one. Nikki's voice is different. Doesn't matter that there are other live shows about whatever. I've never done one. This is my voice. You have a voice to do the things that you want to do. That's what makes the thing that we're doing like so much fun and so exciting because there really is no goal. That's the goal, is to show you what Jake's doing. I'm doing it. What other goals are there? If there are other Jakes who are like, yeah, I want to start a business, come to Open Athletes. We can do that right now and help you start that business. That's the goal, and we're doing the goal. So it's not this. I mean, yeah, I want 1,000 athletes, and I want 40,000 people in an audience every day, and blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, like you could strive for that, but the fact that I'm already achieving the goal that I set out to achieve with this, and we're 3 weeks in. And Jake has goals for the things that he's doing, and as when we realize that we're in the middle of the goal, it makes it more fun. It makes it easier. It takes the pressure off of, I gotta reach all these things. And sometimes we gotta do to keep the lights on. I run this for just time, $0. But I do it because I love it. I do it because we can talk about the things that we need to talk about, and that is segue. The Los Angeles Dodgers owner, Mark Walter. We have to talk about it.